was just talking about how much
All right, if I can have everybody's attention real quick.
You're not wearing a pink shirt, I don't know.
I know, I don't have a pink shirt.
this gentleman here is in.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started.
Okay, so just throwing that out.
Okay, so
Maybe the Charlie mentioned Okay, let's see.
okay, well, before we get started, there's a charging station over here if you want to plug your phone in before the car tripping. Make sure you turn your phones off and make sure they're in a silent position. If you're here for the APA or the CAM credits, there's a sign-in sheet over there, and I'm going to be passing out an evaluation sheet. And you guys have 15 minutes. Today's presentation is A Council of Neighborhoods Can Be a Major Resource. And our speakers today are Kathy Benz, Mary Butler, Bill Earl, Melanie Goddard, Ann Kaplan, Lori Muldowney, Lourdes Ramirez, Pat Rounds, Sean Sellers, and William Zoller.
And we are missing a couple of people. My name's Kathy Benz, and I'll be the moderator sort of here, begin the thing. I'm the president of CONA. When we proposed to do this workshop, it was set for a different day. And several of our speakers were not able to meet the changed date. That's the reason why there are a few of us here than you were told. And I wanted to talk about initially what CONA is. We are a council of neighborhood associations. Ours is of Sarasota County. And we are open to membership by any neighborhood within the boundaries of the county. And you all can do this in your own region. There are a lot of CONAs throughout the country. It's a commonly used name. Some call it a coalition, some call it a council. Principally, I have to learn the stuff here. These are the types of things that we do. We advocate in general for neighborhood protection and preservation from threats such as incompatible developments, rezonings, comprehensive plan changes, and road designs. We serve as an information resource, a hub sort of, through our website, newsletters, and email alerts. We serve as a spokesperson for neighborhoods to the media. We serve on planning committees for comprehensive plan updates and amendments, land development regulations, and zoning regulations. We participate in public hearings for various critical processes, such as land use and transportation matters. And if necessary, we participate in putting charter amendments on the ballot, referendum. And we also hold programs such as election forums and other educational programs on issues such as listed above. Now, essentially, we are not a political organization, we're apolitical. We are able to endorse political candidates if we want to, and we've been in existence since 1961, and at times have very definitely been involved in endorsing candidates. We haven't recently, but we still have the potential if we want to. And since we're a nonprofit organization of volunteers, we can choose to do what we wish. We're not affiliated with the government, and we're not affiliated with any other organization. And all of the things that we do obviously are tied together and require a long time to develop the expertise and the relationships required to benefit those we represent. At the moment, we have approximately 70 neighborhood associations that are members, but we offer our services to any neighborhood that has a problem, needs help. We'll always jump right in and help them and give them as much information as we can, make their issue known in the community, go speak on their behalf at meetings. We will give them all of the services we've got capable to provide. And as you can imagine, it takes a long time to develop expertise in all of these areas. That's one of the advantages of getting an organization up and running and having the kind of history we do. As I said, we were founded in 1961. So we have some people that have remained in our organization, and the institutional knowledge that they have had has endured a decade or whatever length of time they've participated with us. And our board members become very knowledgeable very often in a specific area. Now we will consult with members, and we establish relationships with experts who are willing to represent member neighborhoods or neighborhoods per se. We establish relationships with the media, which a new neighborhood with an issue that all of a sudden arises doesn't have any idea usually how to get their issue into the media and being discussed. We've got working relationships with the press, with the newspapers, with the television station reporters and things, and we keep those relationships cultivated so that when we have an issue we want to discuss, we have somebody to go to right away, and we tend to get the visibility through those media. And we have established relationships with other experts that would deal on the topics of the issue for a neighborhood. And also, we do occasionally, as I said, get involved in ballot issues. Issues are something we will always take a stand on. It's the candidates that we have tended not to make referrals for, and we will advocate strongly for that. And CONA has contributed people working on significant referenda, 3 of which we got passed through county voters in supermajority votes. The first time we got 65% of the votes, and we went up each time and increased because we only go after the issues that we know broadly are important enough to the neighborhoods. Now, these people who are sitting here are people who either have been our longtime leaders, or they're a new member of our board, or they're an expert that we use as a person that we will send neighborhoods to for their issue. And I'm going to march down the table, and I'm going to ask one at a time we've got about a half an hour to divide up among these people in order to discuss their personal history with the organization. I'll ask them a couple of questions. This is Ann Kaplan.
Hi, everybody. I'm the past president of CONA and also Siesta Key Association. And I was a CONA board member for about 11 years, and I just recently retired, been termed out. They termed me out. They put me out in the field, which is...
We'll never let go of her.
Anyway, Kathy just said something that correlates to something I brought along that I wanted to share with you. When I first moved to Florida, it was 16 years ago, and something came up in my neighborhood that was an issue that I was very concerned about. So I went around and talked to all the neighbors to try to find out where do I go to talk about this kind of situation or for help with it. And it was something I had to deal with the government, because it had to do with land use issues and lot splitting, where they were taking lots that were zoned for one kind of housing and for one kind of size and splitting them in half, and so thereby doubling the density in those neighborhoods of what we were what it was zoned for and what we were always anticipating. So I had no idea where to go, who to talk to. I had no idea that any organizations even existed. So I want to show you what my first thing I ever did was. This was my first attempt to rally the troops. I put this little notice in everybody's mailbox in the neighborhood. And behind that, there was some more information that gave more details about, but this was my call to action, saying, you know, black magic marker on yellow paper. This was where it started. And that's actually how I met Lourdes, who then got involved in this whole subject and has become a very, very powerful, strong, effective leader in our community. But anyway, it was without the support of groups and people who have historic knowledge, institutional knowledge of where you go and what to do for various problems, it's really time consuming, and it's like you're reinventing the wheel constantly. And so what I did learn eventually from this effort was I got involved with Siesta Key Association. I found out about them, which was an island-wide neighborhood association. And so then I got involved with them, and then I started learning about how we deal with our government and all the agencies that support our neighborhoods. And it's just been a learning process over many years. But one of the main things that we did while I was on CONA was helping to set up neighborhood advocacy groups and giving them advice on how to set up, how to contact the people they needed to help them with whatever their issues were, and how to get connected with other county, state, and city resources, services, agencies. It's just amazing how long it takes you to learn this when you start from scratch. And if you have a group that you can connect with anywhere near you to get started, we've mentored and advised a lot of new homeowner associations and neighborhood groups and tried to help them organize as well as address the issues that they were having. And usually when people come to us for a problem, it's because they're having a problem. People don't just run out and say, where can I get in touch with CONA or any of these other neighborhood groups? It's when an individual neighborhood has a problem that's when they're most likely to surface and say, you know, I want to get involved because I need your help. And we're a great network, connecting other homeowner associations together and like-minded groups. And there's a lot of other ways that you can help people other than just with government and land use things. We have been very successful in helping set up some neighborhood watch programs for some neighborhoods with the local sheriff's department and other safety issues that neighborhoods had problems with. And we have also been very effective in helping with utilities such as FPL, who, as many of you may have experienced throughout Florida, will go through the neighborhoods and just butcher the trees, or maybe do some other things that you don't like on your easements. And so the idea is that a group like this provides strength in numbers and creates an alliance with a much stronger voice. So we have neighborhoods that belong to our group that are from 7 houses is a neighborhood group up to 5,000 and everything in between.
1 minute more. 1 minute more.
Oh, okay. Oh, geez. And also another thing that we do that I just wanted to point out is newsletters, monthly newsletters, which are very important to help our associations know what the current issues are that will affect them, and then our opinions on some of these big issues and how to tackle it or how to overcome those things. There's another thing that we help people with, which is neighborhood grant applications. And I don't know if every county or city has this, but we do in Sarasota County, and this is a wonderful program, and a lot of neighborhoods don't even know anything about it. And we try to give them all the information they need to get this accomplished. And another thing that we've done for years now is support community youth development, which is a program for high school students in the county. And it teaches them how to be really good citizens and good community volunteers. And then we try to acknowledge them and reward them and encourage them to continue that work throughout the rest of their lives.
Thank you. And next is Lourdes Ramirez, and she became president of CONA following Ann. We're going to have time for Q&A after we go down the line here, so there will be time for questions. Go ahead, Lourdes.
Good morning. Good morning. Now, there's several ways. If you don't have a council in your community, there are several ways that you can create one. I see a couple of people here that I recognize who developed their own little group, by going to their next door neighborhood and then starting. I see Englewood being represented and DeSoto Acres. When they had an issue, the one thing about a council is the fact that you can share it with another, and you'll find you may have a land use fight. Let's say some developer's coming in, he wants to build X, and you're angry and you're upset. When this council gets together and start talking, you realize you're not alone. And there might be people who have experienced it already and can tell you what their experience has been with the government, what their experience has been with the developer. And that's the best part of CONA, is sharing that experience. So we're a formal CONA. We have a incorporation. We're a private organization. And the good part about that too is the fact that as a private organization or formal organization, we can get directors in insurance, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with the director's insurance, but this protects you in case somebody sues you for, and it's happened. I was part of Siesta Key Association. A developer wanted to build a bar. It was illegal. He went after our association because we complained. He didn't win, but we needed to cover that legal fee, and I was covered by our insurance. And CONA is covered by our insurance because we're a private organization. But there are other organizations that are not very formal. They're just a group of people who got together because they hear of a big project, and that's fine too. You can develop a council that's informal, that's not formal, that a group of people can get together and share a concern. We have developers coming in, for example, in an area. It impacts one neighborhood, it can impact 10 neighborhoods. And it's good to share, and not only good to share the information between each other, but when you go in front of a government, like a county government, and you have 10 organizations there together fighting this development, that's a big impact. It's good to have one neighborhood concerned, but when you have 10 or more, it's great. Like the other day, there was a big issue in our area, and there was about 16 neighborhoods who came up, 46 people willing to speak against this project in front of the commission. That gave them pause before they went forward. So that's the biggest, strongest thing about having a council of neighborhoods, to share information and to also show the strength. Because usually we have the same ideals, protecting our neighborhoods. That's the whole point of having a neighborhood association and having a CONA. And again, you can have it formal or informal. We're not a 501c4, which allows you to endorse or support candidates. We're just a private organization. We can go down that path and be a 501c4, but you could also just stay private. So those are good organizations. Not only is it to defend neighborhoods, but we've been approached by the government to help as well. When the county wanted to pass a surtax, for example, and they wanted to spread the word that it's a good thing to have this surtax so we can build roads and develop other projects like parks, they came to CONA and said, can you spread the word? Can you get organizations together so we can make one presentation to all these neighborhoods and then hopefully get support? So it runs both ways. We can help ourselves, and they can come up to us as well. Thank you.
Lori Muldowney, our next speaker, is a historic preservation specialist. She has spent her entire career working in the area. She was the head of the Historic Preservation Division of Sarasota County. She worked in the city of Sarasota on historic preservation. Lori?
Thank you. It's nice to be here this morning. Nice to see so many people out on a Saturday learning about neighborhoods. Thank you for inviting me. So as Kathy said, I'm not a member of the board of CONA, but I'm one of the people that CONA can reach out to as a resource. And I think that's something very valuable that CONA brings to the Sarasota community. And we also have experts in engineering and in political science, all kinds of different fields. Yes, many, many. So I was going to talk a little bit about the importance of historic preservation and neighborhood stabilization. A lot of these concepts and ideas have been around for a long time. I thought I'd speak a little bit about a recent experience of mine working on the east coast of Florida in Hollywood Beach earlier this year. Hollywood, like many communities, did a historical and architectural survey maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and they found that they were, the information was out of date. Many new historical resources have been identified or potentially identified since that time, and so they wanted to update their historical and architectural survey. So I actually have a question for some of you. I wondered if any of you knew if your communities had had historical and architectural surveys. And what is your community? St. Petersburg. Okay, great. I know they have a good program. Yes, yes.
Sarasota.
Okay, great. City of Sarasota has been doing surveys for a period of time, and I know in certain neighborhoods they're working on updating those. Yes. Anybody else familiar with that historical and architectural survey process? Okay, well, I'll talk a little bit about that because it is an important neighborhood preservation tool. The tool, fortunately, once again, the Department of State Division of Historical Resources has significant funding available for communities to do historical and architectural surveys. Like other states across the country, the tool that's used is an architectural survey form. It's called the Florida Master Site File in the state of Florida. And it's just a basic form that's used to identify individual resources and evaluate them in terms of their significance, their level of integrity. One of the questions that I've probably gotten the most commonly through the many years of my career was a really basic and good question about what does make a structure historically significant. In the old days, when the National Register was first created, which was 1966, we have just this year celebrating the 50-year anniversary of the Register, buildings were identified as important only if they were significant on the national level. Thankfully, over the years, there's been recognition that there is historic significance on the local, state, and national levels. And so we can look at more modest structures that are not high style and recognize their importance to a neighborhood, to a community. And so a building has to have significance, on either the local, state, or national level. It has to possess historic integrity. And when I think about historical integrity, the easiest way to think about it is a building that can relay its historic significance through its physical appearance. So it hasn't been so altered over the years that you can't really tell what that original structure is. And then of course the big question, how old does a building have to be? As a rule of thumb, buildings need to be 50 years old or older to be eligible for the local or national registers. However, there are exceptions to that rule. Here in Sarasota County, many of you, if you live here, I'm sure you've heard about the significance of our post-World War II architectural movement called the Sarasota School of Architecture. And so we have nominated buildings to local and national registers at less than 50 years of age. And the National Register as well recognizes that there are buildings with significance that can be nominated. So
One more minute.
okay, well.
what I want to talk about is why is this tool important, whether it be the Florida Master Site File, the local register, the state register. And it's of course nice to know what we have out there. It's nice to do walking tours and historical markers. But really most significant is the fact that these are planning tools. That if you know that a neighborhood is historic, planners in your planning department, planners at the state Florida Department of Transportation, SwiftMud, etc., you know, they recognize that here's a special place, here's a significant place. It's not to say that you're going to be protected 100% against all kinds of development, but there is recognition that it's an important place. And if the district or individual property is actually listed in the National Register of Historic Places, there is a process on the national level which requires that there be a dialogue, if you will, between the Florida Department of Transportation and the National Register people. It's called the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. So other than just loving history or loving historic buildings, I think it's most important to realize that it's also an effective planning tool. Thank you very much.
Lori has retired from her positions with the two governments, and she's opened up a consulting business in historic preservation. She's available to anyone who wants to have a consultation about their neighborhood or their house or whatever. And Mary Butler is our next speaker, and she is a brand new member of our board of directors, and I'd like her to address why she wanted to join the CONA board.
Good morning. Good morning. And I am a very newbie at this. I'll start off by saying, you know, I grew up at a time when we all knew our neighbors. When it was okay to go next door and borrow a cup of sugar or whatever. Or when you were outside and Miss Willie Mae saw you doing something, and by the time you got home, your mother knew what you had done. And that was cool, though. It was really cool because I remember, well, didn't understand it, but today I do, and I know they were just protecting us. That's all it was. We were being protected, and we didn't know it. And so we had a lot of fun times. My mother used to have these card games, and she would have a group of ladies come over. Now, those were just card games, but this group of women, they were powerful women. You know, even though they were just playing cards, they were getting stuff done, and we didn't know they were getting stuff done. But me being me, and me just loved, you know, hanging out with these older women, and of course, every time they needed something, and I would go get them something, they gave me a quarter. So, you know, I was right there with those women. But I remember hearing them discuss neighborhood issues, what was going on, and some things that needed to be done. And I really gravitated to that, and it really made a difference in my life hearing these women. And I do remember when issues would happen, they would come together and they would help each other out. Well, you know, Miss Sarah, you know, ain't working anymore, or you know they had a fire over there. We all got to get together and help the family. So that's what neighborhoods were like for me growing up. And so how I ended up here is because I still care about neighborhoods. It's changed, of course, but you know what? If the problem is in the neighborhood, and then so is the solution, you know. And getting involved with CONA, I'm also with my own neighborhood association, but CONA, I wanted to get involved because I wanted to know how to do things the correct way. You know, I wanted to learn the right way to do it. You know, I wanted to learn about the government, city council, local council. You know, how do you go about, you know, getting lights on your streets taken care of? You know, how do you go about getting land use issues taken care of? So it is definitely a learning process. It's nothing like it was when I was growing up, but it's okay. You know, it's really okay, and I'm really happy to be a part of CONA and to learn. I thank God for the internet.
One more minute.
And I can stay on the internet and I can learn. And besides, even when I go to CONA, like Ann said, and like Lourdes said, it's support. they encourage me to say, wait a minute, you have a valid, issue here, and this is what you do to get it resolved. So I'm very excited about being on CONA. I'm learning every single time I'm around these wonderful people, and I'm not going anywhere. So
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Melanie Goddard. And Melanie came to CONA because her neighborhood had a very urgent problem. And although she had spent a good deal of time researching on her own, many aspects of it very expertly, I will have to tell you, she still sought us in order to give her advice and to coach her on significant things. Melanie?
Thank you, Kathy. Like many things in life, we get involved when it affects us personally. It's we have skin in the game. I had read about CONA and intended to get involved, and it just so happened that the universe tossed me at them. I am on the board of the Gulfgate Community Association here in Sarasota County, and our issue was that Mr. Baroof had purchased our golf course, which we do not own, and our golf course was an executive course, which was really 3 little nuggets. It wasn't a big, expansive, full-size golf course. It was 49 acres split among 3, which were essentially the backyards of 3 blocks of our community. And the plan was, as you can imagine, what's popular now, the gated and walled and, the whole. So, hearing that and loving the kind of, post-World War II, simple, old Florida neighborhood that we had, I saw a real reason to get involved and see if there was a way to impact what went there. CONA, and I am a board member of the Gulfgate Association. I am also the liaison to CONA, so that's how it works, is if you have a neighborhood association, you can, if somebody has a personal interest, whether you have an issue going on or not, that person can attend the CONA meetings and kind of bring back to you what's going on. To me, CONA represents balance in the world. Because if there isn't a force, if you are your own little organization starting from scratch and you have no idea what the comprehensive plan allows, what the zoning allows, what the future land use is calling for, what the 2050 even is, you're like David and Goliath, only not with the same results. So CONA, in addition to being a resource for individual neighborhoods in need, also represents neighborhoods politically in a subtle way. That developers know that there is somebody watching. Sarasota is in one of the many revisions of their comprehensive plan, and the developers have been very, and I'm not negative to developing, I'm negative to insensitive and inappropriate developing. So the developers have been very instrumental in trying to maneuver the changes of the comprehensive plan to their favor, not the least of which is to eliminate, and there is a whole section in the housing policy of the comp plan that pertains to neighborhoods, maintaining neighborhoods, consulting neighborhoods, not disrupting neighborhoods. Neighborhoods are the heart, as Mary very well described. And CONA is watching this. CONA has representation